year later, Celeste knocked on Lydia's door to see if she would play today. Lydia answered the door and noticed that it was her best friend. "Hello there, Celeste," Lydia greeted her friend. "Can I play with you today?" Celeste asked. "Sure, but we can't play near the abandoned fields," Lydia replied, "nor the forest that is abandoned either. We got in trouble last time." "Yeah, I know," Celeste said. She then walked into Lydia's house, and she noticed that her best friend was holding a doll. "What's that, Lydia?" Celeste then asked. "It's my doll. I had it since I was 4 years old," Lydia replied. "That doll is so cute, Lydia. Who gave you the doll?" Celeste asked. Lydia looked at the doll and smiled. "My mother gave me that," Lydia replied again. "Look at what I had when I was young," Celeste said as she showed Lydia her pendant. "Who gave you that, Celeste?" Lydia asked. "My mother gave it to me. It used to belong to her. Now she's passing it down to me," Celeste replied. "Your mother is so nice, Celeste," Lydia said, as she and Celeste both went to play in Lydia's bedroom. "She sure is, Lydia," Celeste stated. "So Celeste, one day when we're adults, we'll stay together forever," Lydia said. Then Celeste was staring outside through Lydia's bedroom window. She could see what was going on. "Celeste, what are you doing?" Lydia asked as Celeste mentioned Lydia to come towards the window. "And look outside, Lydia. I see Max talking to Jack and Robert," Celeste stated. Lydia looked through the window and gagged. She and Celeste both disliked Max, since he was so annoying. "Ew!" Celeste groaned. "Yuck!" Lydia gagged as well. "That's it, Max. Your parents will not believe this," Celeste said as she and Lydia both looked at each other. "Boys will be boys, Celeste," Lydia sighed as she and Celeste didn't bother to go outside to see what was going on. "Max is telling Jack and Robert to marry us." Celeste started to gossip a bit, even though it wasn't polite. "I know, right? He should have left us alone and leave our friends alone," Lydia gossiped as well. "Yeah, but I have no clue on what Max is doing. I'm getting so sick and tired of him. I just wish he would start being nice for once. At least to us, at least," Celeste said, as she and Lydia were playing with a dollhouse. "I agree with you, Celeste. Who cares what will happen to Max?" Lydia replied. "I could do magic. Want to see?" Celeste asked. "Sure, go ahead," Lydia replied. Celeste then used her magic and she held and made a field of flowers appear. "Wow, Celeste, I've never seen anything like it before. You're an amazing friend I've ever had," Lydia stated as she hugged her best friend. "Thanks, Lydia. No one can replace myself," Celeste said as she hugged Lydia back. "I really like being friends with you," Celeste said. Ed and Lydia looked at her. "I really like being friends with you too, Celeste," Lydia said as she sat down on her bed. "Same here, Lydia," Celeste replied, sitting beside her best friend. However, at night, Celeste was sleeping until she heard some people chatting and screaming. She woke up and looked through her window to see Nathaniel and Alana with Lydia's mother. "Oh no, something's wrong. I have to go see what's going on," Celeste said as she got dressed, and then she went out the door to see her parents talking. Everyone was screaming, giving out orders to people around the village. "What's going on, Mother and Father?" Celeste asked. "Celeste, there's something bad going on right now," Nathaniel replied with his daughter with a question. "What is it?" Celeste asked again. "Our house is on fire, and Lydia's still in the house. She threw me her doll when she was little, but she can't get down by herself. She's too scared," Linda said in a panicked tone. "Let's go find Lydia and hope she's okay," Elena replied, as she and Nathaniel and Celeste headed off towards the burning house. "Come on, everyone, let's go," shouted a villager. When Celeste and her parents with Lydia and Lydia's mother got to the house, they saw Lydia was still stuck in her room. She was near the window, and she was too scared to get down by herself. "Oh my gosh, Lydia!" Celeste was scared, but she didn't know what to do. She was only a child, and she's never been in this type of situation in her life. "Nathaniel, please help me!" Lydia screamed as Nathaniel watched in horror as the fire was getting closer and closer. "I'm coming, Lydia. Stay where you are," Nathaniel said. He had no choice but to run through the burning house. Once inside, he dodged the fire and things that were coming down from the house, till he got to Lydia's room. "Nathaniel!" Lydia shouted as she gave Nathaniel a hug, and more of the house was starting to come down. "Let's get out of here. We can't die like this," Nathaniel replied as she and Lydia jumped out of the house and they landed in the hay. "That was a close one," Lydia said. Then Celeste and Alana ran up to Nathaniel and Lydia. Lydia, are you okay? Celeste asked. I'm okay, Celeste. That fire was really scary, Lydia replied. Celeste helped Lydia up as Elana walked towards Nathaniel. Are you okay, honey? Elana asked. I'm okay, Elana, and Lydia's not hurt, Nathaniel replied. Glad no one's hurt, because since I'm a healer, I can heal any burns. Elana hugged her husband as Jack and Robert ran to their friends. Celeste! Lydia! Jack called to the girls. Celeste and Lydia saw Robert and Jack running to them. They must have heard Lydia screaming. Are you girls all right? He asked. Yeah, we're fine. Lydia's house was on fire, Celeste said. Oh, thank goodness no one's hurt. Let's get inside Celeste's house. We ran when we heard Lydia screaming, Robert said. We're glad Nathaniel saved Lydia, or she could have died in the fire, Linda replied. Or both of them, Elana added. Yeah, that too, Elana, Linda replied back. Another year went by and Lydia is now 8 years old and Celeste is now 7 years old, and things were going very well, till something was up with Elana one day. Celeste and Lydia were playing in the living room of Celeste's house when Elana came in and was coughing violently, and the girls were confused by this. Mother, are you okay? Celeste asked. She was concerned about her mother. I don't know, Celeste. I have to go see a doctor today to find out, Elana replied as she coughed again. What's wrong with me? She finished. Did Nathaniel tell you that? Lydia asked. He did notice that I was coughing, and Elana was cut off by another coughing fit. I'll let you know when I know what's going on with me. I wonder, Elana asked herself. Okay, Mother. Be careful, Celeste said. I will, Elana replied as she patted her daughter on the head. After a few hours, Elana got back from the doctors and Nathaniel had news to tell her. But at the same time, Elana had some bad news to tell to Nathaniel. Elana, I got some great news, Nathaniel said happily. Elana smiled weakly at her husband, happy that Nathaniel had great news, but the bad news was that Elana was very sick. Really? What is it? Elana asked. I am going to be the school director at Dragonvale Academy, Nathaniel replied. He couldn't be even more happier than he was now. That's until Elana breaks the news to him. That's great, honey. Celeste will be thrilled, and so will Lydia. But it's a long way, Nathaniel. How will we get there? Elana asked. We'll be moving there in about 3 months, Nathaniel replied. We'll be taking a horse and cart there. I wonder how should we tell this to Celeste, because she'll be leaving Lydia behind, Elana asked. But she knew that she was sad that Celeste won't be seeing Lydia when they move. Oh yeah, we'll think of some way to tell her this. She might be upset about it, but we'll see how she feels about it and what we did to doctors say about you coughing, Nathaniel then asked. They found out that I have a disease. It's also known as tuberculosis, and it could kill me in a few days, depending on how healthy I am, and if I get a cure or something, Elana replied. Oh no, Elana, how could this happen to you? Nathaniel asked. His joy and happiness soon faded into darkness, as if his whole world had stopped moving. How could this happen? I don't know. Not many people get this often. Celeste will even be more upset about this when I tell her. Never mind that, though. Who will keep an eye on my daughter when I'm gone? Elana asked as she replied. I will, Elana. I'll make sure nothing happens to her, Nathaniel replied. That's when your time comes, but I'm going to make sure you can fight this. I know I can count on you, Nathaniel, Elana said. When Celeste and with Lydia, Robert, and Jack were playing, Elana and Nathaniel had to tell the children the news. We have stuff to tell you. You kids, Nathaniel began to talk to the children. What is it? Celeste asked. Celeste, I am now a school director at Dragonvale Academy. And in 3 more months, we'll be moving and we'll be living there, Nathaniel replied. Really, Dad? But what about my friends? And Celeste asked. Her father again. They can't come with us. Their parents lived here, unfortunately, Nathaniel replied. And what's the other news? Lydia asked. Now this might shock you children, but Elana's got a disease that is also known as tuberculosis, and it can either will kill her in a few days, depending on how healthy she is, and if we find a cure, hopefully she can fight it, Nathaniel started. Oh, that's awful, Robert replied. It is. We'll do our best to keep her healthy, though, Nathaniel said. After a few days went by, Jack had to leave with his mother to Lionvale Academy. It was a magic school, like Dragonvale, so she had to tell Robert the news. "Jack, do you really have to go?" Robert asked. "I have to. My mother is a school director now and we have to go live at the academy," Jack replied sadly, as he was going to miss his friend back in the village. "Does that mean we are no longer friends?" Robert asked sadly. "No, you'll always be my best friend, Robert. Look, I found this in my father's books. It's something that he used when he was young. We'll be best friends forever. It's a ritual of friendship," Jack replied as he showed Robert the ritual friendship scroll. "But it's magic. Is it dangerous?" Robert asked, as he was nervous. "Don't be scared, Robert. Just give me your hands and repeat after me." Jack said as he held Robert's hands and started. "I'm Jack. Swear to remember Robert forever and to never break our bond of friendship, even if the distance separates us. Your turn now." Robert took a deep breath and sighed. "I'm Robert. Swear to remember Jack forever and to never break a bond of friendship, even if distance separates us. From this gift, from my heart to yours, to share my everlasting friendship and to help you to never forget me," Jack said as he was giving Robert his favorite toy dinosaur. "Jack, this toy dinosaur toy you're giving me? Your father gave it to you," Jack replied. "I'm giving it to you, Robert. It's my gift to you." Jack passes his dinosaur to Robert as he smiles. "Oh, I'll know what I give you. From this gift, from my heart to yours, to share an everlasting friendship and to help you to never forget me," Robert replied. "Robert, this race car has been with you ever since I've known you and it's never left your side. Are you sure you wanted to give it to me?" Jack asked. "Yes, Jack. I am sure as you're sure about giving me your father's dinosaur," Robert replied. "I'll never forget you, Robert," Jack said. "I'll promise to come join you one day. I swear," Robert replied, as he and Jack both gave each other one last hug before they went on their own separate ways. Meanwhile, with Celeste at her house, her mother was feeling so ill that she could barely eat and or get out of bed. So Nathaniel and Celeste had to do whatever they could to help Alana, but she was getting weaker and weaker every minute. "My daughter," Elana said as she coughed. She could see tears running down Celeste's eyes. "Mother, don't talk. Keep your strength. You'll need the energy left to fight the disease. We need you, Mother." Celeste was so worried about her dying mother as Nathaniel was worried about his dying wife. He couldn't stand seeing her suffering. "Nathaniel," Celeste is so tired. "Please take her to her room. She needs a rest," Alana said to Nathaniel. "No, Father, can I sleep here with Mom? Father? Father!" Celeste asked, but her father walked away. A few more days went by without luck. Celeste walked into her mother's room. She was seeing her mother not moving one day, and she walked up to see that her mother wasn't breathing. "Mother?" Celeste asked, but there was no answer. "Mother, come on. You gotta get up. Mother, we really need you." Celeste tried waking her mother up, but it was no use. "Help! Somebody! Anybody! Help!" Celeste began to cry as she rested her head on her mother's blanket on her body as she cried some more. When Nathaniel heard Celeste crying, he saw that his wife was dead, so he walked up to her and cried with her. Then at the graveyard, Nathaniel buried the body of his wife and had a gravestone of Lana on it, and Celeste was so devastated. She lost her mother, the one that cared for her when she was born. It was a heartbreaking to this day. "I'm so sorry, Celeste. If you ever need me, I'll always be there," Lydia said as she patted Celeste's back as she sobbed. "Thank you, Lydia, but nothing will ever replace my mother," Celeste sobbed. "Your father and I are still here, Celeste," Lydia said. "Get up, Celeste. It's time to go. Crying won't do any good." Nathaniel started to leave the gravestone as Lydia and Celeste followed him. A few months went by and Celeste was about to leave for Dragonvale Academy. She had to say goodbye to Lydia, who was her best friend that she's known after all these years. "Celeste, do you really have to go?" Lydia asked. "Yes, I have to. My dad's a school director now and we have to go live in the academy," Celeste replied sadly. Does that mean we can't be best friends anymore?" Lydia asked. "No, you'll always be my best friend, Lydia. Look, I found this in one of my mother's books. It's a ritual of friendship. With it, we'll be best friends forever," Celeste replied. However, Lydia wasn't really so sure about this idea. "But it's magic. Is it dangerous?" Lydia asked. "Don't be scared, Lydia. Just give me one of your hands and repeat after me. I'm Celeste. Swear to remember Lydia forever and to never break a bond of friendship, even if distance separates us. Your turn now, Celeste said as she finished her part of the ritual. I'm Lydia. Swear to remember Celeste forever and to never break the bond of friendship, even if distance separates us, Lydia said, repeating what Celeste said. From this gift, my heart to yours, is to show our everlasting friendship and to help you to never forget me, Celeste said as she was handing Lydia her pendant from her mother. What are you doing? I can't accept that. Your mom gave it to you, Lydia asked in surprise. Yes, you can. This is my gift to you, Celeste replied. Oh, I know what I'll give you. With this gift from my heart to yours, to show our everlasting friendship and to help you to never forget me, Lydia said as she was going to give Celeste her doll. But Lydia, this has been with you ever since I've known you and it's never left your side. Are you sure you really wanted to give it to me? Celeste asked, still wasn't sure. Yes, I'm sure as you're sure about giving me your mom's pendant, Lydia replied. I'll never forget you, Lydia, Celeste said as she hugged Lydia. I promise I'll come join you one day. I swear, Lydia replied. The girls said their last goodbyes, and they sadly part ways.